Thousands and thousands of Oklahomans are being required by their employers to get the COVID vaccine. But if something goes wrong, let's say they have an adverse reaction, is the employer liable? Well, State Senator Rob Standridge says, yeah, they should be, and he's introduced a bill to do something about it. He joins us in studio. I'm Andrew Spino on special assignment with Project 46. Joining us now, Senator Rob Standridge from Norman. Thank you so much for coming in. Tell us about your bill, Senate Bill 1106, what it does, what you hope to achieve.
Senate Bill 1106 is a little bit out of frustration. I mean, we've been wrestling with these vaccine mandates both at state and federal level, and I've been really frustrated that we haven't been able to get anything done. And so 1106 is, I think, a creative way to maybe interject a little bit of liability for those that are requiring this vaccine, just like anything else. And so really the bill just requires, if they don't vet the medication, in this case a vaccine, then they're liable for at least $1 million if there's any harm done.
And when you say they, tell us who you're talking about.
The employer. If the employer requires an employee take a medication, because the bill is generic, but in this case, let's talk about the vaccine. If they require the vaccine, but they didn't really make sure it's safe and they can't show that it's safe, then they automatically are liable for at least $1 million. Now, if they can justify that it's safe and it can't be found grossly negligent under that cause of action, then they still have cause if there's harm done. So it's a cause of action for the employee. So it goes past the federal protection for vaccines in this case. So these employers that are mandating this are now going to be liable for harm.
Okay. Why do this? What motivated this?
Well, I'm just trying to find out how to slow this down. I've been a health professional for 30 years. I could have never imagined.
So on the vaccine mandate?
Yeah, the vaccine mandates or any health mandates. I just think that's a personal choice. I mean, a citizen ought to make their own healthcare choices. And frankly, I'm not against the vaccine, but the amount of pressure and politics behind this is unbelievable. Now we have people demanding all children be vaccinated, which almost makes practically zero sense.
Right, and your stand on it is like a moral litmus test.
Right.
Your background is in medicine.
Yeah, I've been a pharmacist for 30 years and studied a lot of chemistry and pharmaceutical science in school. So I know that pharmaceuticals, drugs, vaccines can be miracles. I mean, they really can. But sometimes we find out a few years later that they weren't as good as promised. And I'm not saying that with the vaccine. I'm just saying that shouldn't the person taking that drug into their body, shouldn't they be making that decision where they want to take that risk or not, or if they think it's no risk?
10 years later, one leg grows shorter than the other one.
I'll never forget the 90s, Andrew, the Pondem. You remember the Fen-Phen? The Pondem, it was called Pondem.
Yeah, it was a weight loss.
Right, everybody was on it. Anybody that had at least 2 pounds overweight was on this. We could not keep it in the pharmacies. I mean, we just poured out of the pharmacies. And after several years, we found out that not just because people were overweight, even thin people were dying because of heart valve collapse and various other problems. And so the so-called miracle drug, you can't find it anymore. And so am I saying that will happen with this? No, I think they're relatively safe. However, that begs the question, who should be taking that responsibility on? The employer or the citizen? I think the citizen. I think the employer can certainly encourage it, but I think the citizen should make the final decision.
Okay, so this mandates that a private employer who is following what was the OSHA directive, which we'll get to in a second.
Or CMS.
Or whatever, that they have to carry a liability insurance, $1 million per person that they vaccinate. Okay, so I think...
However they want to protect themselves.
Okay, so if the company already doesn't want to comply with this OSHA directive, but they're being forced to, it's costing them money, maybe some employees quit over it. Doesn't this just add another burden to those companies that are already suffering with this?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, excellent point. Again, I don't want to file this, although I will say that the government tells the employer what to do from the second they decide to be an employer.
That's true.
When you pull a shovel out of your shed and start digging, you better have called the government for permission.
You better get your occupational digging license.
That's correct. And you better have the right number of porta potties and the right number of fences. I kind of equated, I think a decent analogy is a forklift. I mean, if I'm at a warehouse, I used to have a distribution company, so we had forklifts, all that kind of equipment. If I go out and buy one at somebody's yard sale and I save 90% and I take it and I know this thing is suspect and I put the employee on it and he crashes, I'm punitively liable. I'm grossly negligent because I didn't even take the time to make sure that forklift was safe. Again, with this bill, if the employer takes the time to make sure they're safe, this drug is safe, they can force their employee to do it. I think it's still a bad idea, but I think they would, and they can avoid the liability that they could incur under this bill. But I think it's a bad idea.
All right. This whole debate has been interesting because one of the dynamics is, who's right trumps whose. The employer to not be, to set whatever conditions of employment they want, or the employee who doesn't want to do this.
I think conditions, in my mind, I'm a business guy. I mean, I like the freedom to do business however you want. I come up a little short when you're forcing somebody to put a chemical in their body that will impact them potentially for the rest of their lives. So that's where I draw the line. I mean, telling somebody they got to wear an outfit or comb their hair a certain way or not have a tattoo or whatever other, that's a little different. They got to be there at 7:30 in the morning. That's a little different than putting a chemical inside your body that you're really not comfortable doing.
And the
level of privacy invasion, Andrew, is just, it's hard to even.
And the fact that the last VAERS report that I saw, and I have zero medical training, and I'm saying this out of pure what I read on the website, was that there were, I think, 27 to 28,000 people who are permanently disabled because of the shot.
Yes, and we've had a lot of underreporting. I have family friends that their daughter was in the hospital for several days. The only conclusion we can come to is the vaccine. I personally wouldn't have recommended that if they'd asked me, but with all the public pressure and stuff, they make a 16-year-old kid go down and get a shot that is of no viable value whatsoever. In fact, I would say the equivalent of that would be the government saying that every 16-year-old has to get a shingle shot. They're about as I don't know, they'll get about as sick with shingles at 16 as they will with COVID.
And don't quote me on the age, I don't remember what it was, but also on the CDC, they have annual fatality death statistics that in kids, I think it was 18 and under, might have been 16 and under, that there were twice as many deaths from pneumonia in 2020 than there was from COVID.
Yeah, and the COVID, like I remember a few months ago when the stat came out that there were 65 COVID cases of kids, pediatrics. Well, when I researched that, I found out that those were COVID positive, but those weren't COVID cases for the most part. Those are people that were in the hospital. Kids were in the hospitals with RSV or something, okay, and then they were just happened to be COVID positive, and so they mark them as that. So that's a very misleading number for children.
Okay, now somebody told me this. You tell me if it's true that if, and I don't know if this was the rule, is the rule, but the claim is at least this was the rule during the height of the pandemic, that if, let's say I was COVID positive and I was killed in a car crash, my death would be marked down as a COVID death.
I hear that. I mean, I don't have validation of that, but it wouldn't surprise me because caregivers were given incentives for COVID positive.
Bonus,
so why would you not write it down? I mean, at the end of the day, sadly, everything leads to the almighty dollar. And so if they're going to get another $20,000 or $10,000 for marking that checkbox, they're going to mark the checkbox. And frankly, if you go and you look at the stats on CDC and others, and you look at those stats, you'll see that almost every one of them have significant comorbidities. I mean, you're talking like 80-some%, a lot of those deaths. So, I mean, having comorbidities.
And obesity seems to be the biggest one.
Yeah, and so you have all of those. Well, some of them are even myocardial infarction, which how is that a comorbidity to COVID? I don't understand that. Now, that's a low one. It's like 10 or 15 heart attack.
Oh, heart attack.
So, I mean, so chicken or the egg here? I don't know. I don't want to question that. I mean, it's a serious didisease. I'm not questioning it's not a serious disease, but how do you classify that as COVID? I mean, that's different. I don't know. Maybe they can. Maybe
if they had the heart attack because of the COVID.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. And of course, with kids, it's heart inflammation that's the concern. You might have saw over Vietnam says no more children, because it's an actual known risk to children for pericarditis and other heart inflammation. And so, why would you do that? You have that risk for the child, and the stats show almost zero risk for the bug. Why would you opt for a risk potentially? You don't know for sure. I mean, I don't understand that. That's a baffling one to me, and that's caused not because the parent is not thinking through it. So I'm not demeaning the parent. That's caused because the political pressure and the media and all the hype over this.
Economic pressure.
Yeah, it's driving people to do things and not think through things like they normally would. And I would encourage people, as a health professional, to make sure you research and feel comfortable with it.
Okay, so as far as your bill goes, mandating this liability insurance, the question now is, based on the OSHA decision to not enforce the mandate federally, does your bill still matter? Let's get to that just as soon as we come back. Stay with us. If you're a business owner, you know what a hassle it is trying to navigate the world of health insurance, new mandates, new requirements. How do you know you're getting the best price and the right coverage? It's confusing. You need an expert on your side. That expert is Brett Casey at Health Markets Insurance Agency. He'll find you the plan that fits your needs, fits your budget. Give Brett a call, 405-413-5384, or go to brettcaseyinsurance.com. He helped me back when President Obama told me I was going to lose my medical coverage, and then I did, and he helped me get through all that. He's a good guy. Brett Casey at Health Markets Insurance Agency. That number again, 405-413-5384. Brett Casey's a big supporter of Project 46. We hope you'll support him as well. Go to his website, brettcaseyinsurance.com.